The American Pickers world was thrown into even deeper turmoil following Mike Wolf's sentencing for the murder of Frank Fritz, but perhaps the most shocking twist came with the revelation surrounding Danielle Colby. Known for her vibrant tattoos, vintage style, and fierce no-nonsense attitude, Colby's life was forever changed as the investigation took a dark turn. Initially appearing as a reluctant witness for the prosecution, she had tried to maintain a neutral position throughout the case, but explosive evidence recovered from encrypted servers suggested her involvement was far deeper than anyone had anticipated. Federal investigators announced they were expanding their inquiry to include Colby after retrieving a trove of encrypted text messages between her and Wolf in the days surrounding Fritz's death. The messages, recovered from backup servers, painted a troubling picture of Colby's potential knowledge of events leading up to the tragedy. Although she had not been formally charged, the mounting pressure and public scrutiny surrounding her involvement intensified with each passing day. During Wolf's trial, Colby's emotional testimony had been crucial in portraying Wolf as increasingly obsessed with being the sole face of American Pickers. Crying on the stand, she recalled how Wolf became defensive and angry whenever reconciling with Fritz was discussed, casting herself as a concerned friend caught between two feuding men. Yet behind the scenes, forensic digital experts working with the FBI uncovered more than 200 text exchanges between Colby and Wolf in the week before Fritz's death, many directly referencing Fritz's medication schedule and periods when he would be alone. One message sent just hours before Fritz was found unresponsive read chillingly, "He's alone now, nobody scheduled to check on him until tomorrow. Windows closing." Wolf's rapid response, "It's handled, delete this thread," painted a far more sinister picture than Colby's courtroom tears had suggested. Fans who once admired Colby's seemingly authentic persona felt betrayed, realizing she may have been more complicit than victim. Her attorney Margaret Wilson issued a carefully worded denial, claiming the messages were taken out of context and that Colby had fully cooperated with authorities. Yet the evidence continued to mount. Security footage from Fritz's neighborhood, enhanced and reanalyzed, showed Wolf arriving at Fritz's house the night of the incident. A passenger, though blurred and grainy, remained in the car, and facial recognition software suggested it could have been Colby herself, a claim she had vehemently denied under oath. Compounding suspicion was a wire transfer of $175,000 from one of Wolf's shell companies to Colby just 2 days after Fritz's death, labeled dubiously as a business consultation fee. Investigators could find no legitimate consulting work corresponding to that payment, and soon after, Colby had purchased a property in Puerto Rico where she began spending increasing amounts of time. The depth of Colby's relationship with Wolf also came under question, as former crew members described intense private conversations between the two, which would abruptly stop when anyone else approached. One former production assistant recalled overhearing Colby warn Wolf that Frank was becoming a liability and that the show would be better without him, a disturbing foreshadowing in hindsight. Even more damning were journal entries written by Fritz himself, discovered in a separate storage unit. In increasingly paranoid and desperate language, Fritz described how he no longer trusted Wolf or Colby, suspecting them of tampering with his medication under the pretense of concern. These entries directly contradicted Colby's trial testimony, where she claimed Fritz confided in her and trusted her completely. Now prosecutors were reviewing her statements for potential perjury charges. The History Channel, desperate to salvage its reputation, issued a statement immediately distancing itself from Colby, suspending all professional ties pending the outcome of the investigation and reiterating its full cooperation with authorities. Colby's rapid rise within the American Pickers operation, from managing antique archaeology to becoming a prominent on-screen figure, was now being re-evaluated under new, more cynical lens. Investigators probed whether her expanding role and increasing financial compensation were tied to a broader conspiracy against Fritz. Friends who once admired Colby expressed shock and disbelief, but also admitted that looking back, there were troubling signs of her growing secrecy and tight control over information flowing to Wolf. Her carefully cultivated public image as an independent, creative spirit balancing burlesque dancing, clothing design, and antique hunting now seemed, to many, a carefully maintained facade. Behind the scenes, Colby had allegedly been managing offshore accounts through shell companies like Vintage Solutions LLC and Rusty Gold Enterprises, directing millions of dollars in show profits to evade taxes. Forensic accountants traced over $3.2 million through these accounts over 5 years, with suspicious withdrawals totaling nearly $500,000 in the months leading up to Fritz's death. During Wolf's trial, Colby had claimed to have minimal involvement in the financial side of the show, but newly unearthed documents bore her signature as an authorized manager of these hidden accounts. Legal experts suggested that depending on what further evidence surfaced, Colby could face charges ranging from obstruction of justice to accessory to murder and serious financial crimes. Former federal prosecutor James Harrington noted that the text messages alone placed her in serious legal jeopardy, particularly if prosecutors could prove she had knowledge of Wolf's intentions and failed to act. The fallout from the scandal was immediate and devastating. Colby's online vintage store saw a dramatic drop in orders, scheduled appearances at burlesque events were cancelled, and her once busy social media accounts fell silent. Perhaps most unsettling was Wolf's reaction to news of the investigation widening to include Colby. During a prison interview, when informed she was now under federal scrutiny, Wolf reportedly smiled for the first time since his sentencing and cryptically said, "About time. She knew everything. Ask her about the storage unit in Davenport. Ask her what we found in Frank's journal." The interview was immediately cut short, but the implication was clear: Colby was no innocent bystander. Fritz's sister Lisa, who had largely remained silent during the trial, issued a powerful statement through her attorney, affirming her family's belief that more than one person had been involved in Frank's death and vowing to see that justice was fully served, regardless of how painful the revelations might become. Former crew members described a toxic environment in the later years of American Pickers, a stark contrast to the friendly on-screen dynamic. Jason Miller, a former camera operator, spoke of a workplace divided between the show's public facade and the secretive machinations orchestrated by Wolf and Colby behind the scenes. He recalled an incident where Colby removed pages from Fritz's notebook during filming, claiming it was to prevent them from bidding against each other, but now he viewed it far more suspiciously. Investigators also uncovered that many of the pics featured on American Pickers had been staged in advance, with Colby coordinating with property owners to plant valuable items for dramatic effect. Though common in reality television, these practices ran counter to the spontaneous, authentic image the show worked so hard to portray. More disturbing still were text messages between Colby and Wolf discussing how to maintain the narrative and keep Fritz in his place, suggesting the manipulation extended to their interpersonal relationships as well. With each new revelation, the line between reality and fiction blurred further, exposing a deeply entrenched culture of deception, betrayal, and greed. The idyllic world of treasure hunting, vintage finds, and American folklore had crumbled, revealing a far more sordid and cynical reality lurking beneath the surface. As federal investigators dug deeper, the possibility that Danielle Colby would face charges seemed not just possible but increasingly inevitable, signaling that the full reckoning for the American Pickers empire was still far from over. The revelations have left longtime viewers of American Pickers stunned and disillusioned, grappling with the idea that the charming, rustic adventures they watched for over a decade may have been built on layers of manipulation, betrayal, and possibly far darker realities. As investigators dig deeper, new witnesses have emerged, including a former American Pickers production manager who provided damning insights into the internal operations of the show. According to this source, Danielle Colby played a pivotal role not only in managing the logistics of the show's road trips but also in controlling narratives, monitoring cast members' behavior, and reporting back to Wolf about any dissent or disruptions, particularly those involving Frank Fritz. She wasn't just booking hotels and managing schedules, the former manager said. She was like Mike's eyes and ears. If anyone got too close to Frank or questioned anything about the show's operations, Danielle would steer them away or quietly have them removed from the project. This characterization of Colby sharply contrasts with her public image as a quirky, independent figure caught between two feuding friends. The growing evidence suggests she was far more enmeshed in the toxic power dynamics than fans ever realized. Further supporting this grim view are newly surfaced emails between Colby and Wolf, obtained through a subpoena of Wolf's personal laptop. In the emails, the two discuss strategies for minimizing Fritz's presence on the show as his health issues worsened, using phrases like phase him out slowly and control the narrative to keep sponsors happy. One particularly chilling message from Colby to Wolf read, "If he won't step down willingly, maybe we just need to wait for nature to take its course. His meds aren't doing him any favors." While not direct evidence of foul play, legal analysts note that the language could be used to illustrate a pattern of malicious intent or at least severe negligence towards Fritz's well-being. Compounding the damning portrait is information from hospital staff who treated Fritz for health complications prior to his death. Nurses have come forward stating that Frank often expressed fear and paranoia about being harmed by people he thought were supposed to be his friends. According to one nurse's affidavit, Fritz said, "I don't feel safe. They're always around, messing with my stuff, asking about my medications. It's like they're waiting for me to slip up." As this labyrinth of accusations and hidden motives continues to unravel, public opinion about Danielle Colby has shifted dramatically. Where once she was seen as a fan-favorite underdog, she is now being re-examined as a potentially key player in a conspiracy that ended with the tragic death of a beloved television personality. Social media accounts once flooded with messages of support and admiration are now overwhelmed with demands for accountability and justice. Hashtags like #JusticeForFrank and #CancelColby have trended for days, as former fans call for her removal from any remaining professional platforms and insist she face the same scrutiny and consequences that Mike Wolfe has. Adding to her troubles, several brands and businesses that once partnered with Colby have cut ties with her in the wake of the allegations. Sponsorship deals, merchandise collaborations, and personal appearances have been cancelled in rapid succession, leaving Colby increasingly isolated both legally and financially. Sources close to her suggest she has considered fleeing the country permanently to her recently purchased Puerto Rico property, though legal experts note that doing so could be perceived as an admission of guilt and complicate her situation further. Meanwhile, prosecutors are carefully building a potential case against Colby, cautious not to overreach but determined to follow the trail of evidence wherever it leads. Subpoenas have been issued for her financial records, communications, and travel history, while forensic experts comb through digital archives for any hint of planning, coordination, or cover-up activities. One particularly promising lead involves a hidden folder discovered on Wolfe's encrypted hard drive, labeled simply Plans. Inside, authorities found spreadsheets tracking Fritz's appearances, health updates, and audience engagement metrics, alongside discussions about boosting Colby's profile at his expense. Although the folder's contents are not definitive proof of criminal activity, they suggest a chilling level of calculation and a willingness to manipulate both the show's narrative and the personal lives of its cast members to achieve financial and personal gain. Even more disturbing, investigators have reportedly reopened an unsolved burglary that occurred at Fritz's home several months before his death, suspecting that it may have been an early attempt to intimidate or unsettle him. Among the few items stolen during the break-in were Fritz's medical records, a safe containing personal journals, and several antique items he had previously refused to sell on the show. At the time, the incident was written off as a random burglary, but in light of current revelations, authorities are re-examining the possibility that it was an inside job, potentially orchestrated by individuals close to Fritz. Colby's name has surfaced once again in connection with this theory, as her role in coordinating travel and logistics would have given her intimate knowledge of Fritz's movements and vulnerabilities. In the court of public opinion, Colby's fall from grace has been swift and brutal. Celebrities and influencers who once praised her unique style and strong persona have gone silent, scrubbing past collaborations from their social media profiles. Former co-stars and production staff have refused to comment publicly, perhaps wary of becoming entangled in the still unfolding legal drama. Even within her once loyal fan base, a sense of betrayal has taken root, as many struggle to reconcile the woman they admired with the possibility that she may have played a role in a dark conspiracy. Amidst the chaos, Frank Fritz's family has remained resolute in their pursuit of justice. Lisa Fritz has continued to meet regularly with prosecutors, pushing for thorough investigations into everyone involved, regardless of their celebrity status or public image. Frank trusted people he shouldn't have, she reportedly told a private investigator working with the family.
In the court of public
opinion. And now it's up to us to make sure those people are held accountable. Adding a further twist to the ongoing saga, a former romantic partner of Colby's has come forward with allegations that she spoke openly about manipulating situations for financial gain during the height of American Pickers' success. In a sworn statement, the ex-partner described Colby as extremely strategic and willing to do whatever it took to maintain her position on the show, including forming alliances and undermining rivals behind the scenes. The portrait painted by this testimony is one of a woman far more calculating and ambitious than her free-spirited public persona would suggest. Legal experts speculate the prosecutors may offer Colby a plea deal if she agrees to provide full disclosure about the events leading up to Fritz's death and any other illegal activities tied to the show's production. However, whether she would accept such a deal remains uncertain. Friends say Colby has become increasingly paranoid, refusing to trust even those closest to her and fearing that any cooperation might endanger her further. The broader fallout from the scandal has sent shockwaves through the reality television industry, prompting renewed scrutiny of behind-the-scenes practices across numerous unscripted shows. Critics argue that the blurred lines between reality and performance, authenticity and manipulation, have created environments ripe for abuse and exploitation. In the case of American Pickers, what was marketed as a celebration of Americana and friendship may now be remembered as a cautionary tale about greed, betrayal, and the dangerous power of manufactured personas. For fans of the show, the sense of loss goes beyond mourning Frank Fritz. It extends to mourning the trust they placed in a story that now appears to have been deeply corrupted from within. As federal investigators prepare to present their findings to a grand jury, the fate of Danielle Colby hangs in the balance. If indicted, she could face a litany of charges, including conspiracy, obstruction of justice, perjury, and financial fraud. Even if she avoids criminal conviction, her reputation and career are likely irreparably damaged. Meanwhile, the investigation continues to peel back layers of deceit, with new witnesses, documents, and evidence emerging almost daily. In the small, tight-knit world of antique collecting, the scandal has created deep rifts, as friends and colleagues take sides, distancing themselves from former allies or quietly preparing for their own potential legal battles. It is a grim legacy for a show that once promised viewers a glimpse into the simple pleasures of discovery and the enduring value of America's past.